Welcome to the Corridor of Uncertainty, the podcast at the intersection of mathematics and sport. I'm Jess.
And I'm Rich.
And we're both mathematicians at the University of York, but we probably spend a bit too much time talking about sport, so we thought we'd make a podcast to spend even longer talking about sport. This is episode 4, so what are we talking about today, Rich?
Right, so today we're going to be talking about one of my less favourite sports, I'd say, but one that I know you're a big fan of, and that's basketball. And this is some work I've done to try to show statistically why basketball is a bad sport. Spoiler alert is, it doesn't, there's no statistical way to prove this, but I hopefully make a case as to why I think this.
Okay, so we've been talking about this for many years now because you like some interesting sports. I mean, horseshoe tossing was the real high point. Anyway, and yet here you are saying that basketball's right. I can't wait to see how you're going to show me this. It's a good athletic
contest, but it's not necessarily. So my problem with basketball stems in some ways from one of the things that's most popular about basketball, and that's the buzzer beater.
Okay.
So this is the shot in the last seconds that changes a loss to a win. It's one of the most dramatic events in sports. There are equivalents in other sports, but not really ones that can be quite the same because of the time running down. And it's only tends to be American sports where you have that kind of time running down thing. You get the cases in American football, but they are slightly different for a reason I'll hopefully explain.
Okay.
So you probably got your favourite buzzer beaters that have happened over time.
Yes.
The famous one that I found in the course of this is the shot, Michael Jordan's one that decided a series with the very last throw of a game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we could do so many of these. We could do a whole show on Jess's favourite buzzer beat. I'm really shocked that this is the thing that you don't like about basketball.
The
I can't wait to tell me.
Exciting, dramatic thing. So the problem, this came from, this whole sort of analysis was inspired by the Pacers, Indiana Pacers, 2024-25 season. They won like 3 games with buzzer beaters, last minute sort of thing. Not buzzer beaters, but last minute type of wins, turnarounds. And this was, you'll have seen covered with a lot of bad stats by people saying, they had a 99.7 loss probability at this point. Nobody ever tells you how they calculate those things, but they like to cite them as being, exciting cases of how dramatic they are. But
yeah, you're absolutely right. So I was, my PhD supervisor and now colleague is an Orlando Magic fan. And there was a game where from the playoffs last year where he sent me the graph that's like win probability. And that, I mean, I kind of loved it, but you're exactly right. I was like, how are they calculating this? And I couldn't find it. I can guess how they calculate it, but I don't know how they actually do that. So
there is some work I've seen on people talking about how they calculate it, but it seems to mainly be used as a tool for talking about how exciting things are rather than as a predictive tool.
Yep.
But anyway, so for this work, I took data using a great ball R package. For a package in R that's fantastic for analysing basketball. And I took 9 seasons worth of data. So that's 2016 to 2017 to 24-25. So up until last season. For the course of this analysis, I took just regular season games because I want to exclude postseason because although, Pacers last year was postseason, it wasn't... not everybody plays in the postseason, so there's not an even number of games. So kind of in the trying to be a bit fairer. So having excluding postseason, excluding playing tournaments, excluding the first new thing as well that they've got. But anyway, so excluding the dramatic buzzer beaters and the dramatic last minute winners, but still trying to provide sort of even sample across the teams.
Okay.
Right. So that's 10,740 games. I had to drop 15 because they didn't have complete data in the set.
I was going to say
the older data set.
10,755, Rich. But anyway,
Right. So this is the fundamental sort of part of my argument of why this last minute winner is an issue, and this is so in 65% of those games, both teams scored 100 points or more. So that's the majority of games. Both teams score at least 100 points. 18% of those games, the score at the end is within 3 points.
Okay.
So that's within one score's change around.
So 18%
Of
of
that
the
65%.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
can't remember what that is, but not too hard to work out.
Yeah.
But generally, so 10% of the total games are decided by the final score.
Okay, right.
So
now,
this
now
isn't.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
This isn't this isn't buzzer beaters. Not 10% of the games end in buzzer beaters,
yeah.
but 10% is decided by the final scoring event. Whether it's not going to be 5 minutes from the end,
But it could be. Yeah.
but it's the last. Basically, it's the score before the final score had a different sign in the score differential to what the final score was. That's how I worked them out. And each team is scoring an average of, the teams combined score an average 116 times in a game. So combined scoring 116. So there are 116 scoring events across a game.
Yeah.
Yet 10% of the time it's decided by that last one. So is it a test? Is the sport of basketball a test of one team's ability to score more points and to dominate in a game? Or is it about timing? This is philosophical,
Wow. Okay. This is really interesting because there's so when I was a school teacher, there are a few games you can play with kids where there's a tactic to your counting, and it's just you've got a choice about. You can say 1 number, 2 number, 3 numbers, and it's who says 11 is.
Oh yeah, I remember.
You're out, yeah. And so, in a sense, that's still a fun game. We had a lot of fun.
Yep.
And
is it a sport?
Last lesson before Christmas, but there's tactics in it, and that's why it was in the maths lesson, right? So, what you're saying is how we view most sport is what you've said second or first, which is who's going to score the most baskets, who's the better basketball team. But actually, it could be who's better at that game that Jess played with her classes.
Yeah. So it's given there's so many scoring events, the turnovers are so rapid. Does that mean that, should the outcome of a good sport, be a 50-50 coin toss, whoever scored last, when there's 116 events? So rugby, American football, all have last-minute buzzer beater type plays. Rugby has some really exciting ones, but the teams aren't scoring 116 times combined in that period. So it's the fact that it's one very small thing that happens quite often decides the outcome of a game, means that is there an element of randomness in that, into determining who's winning, and therefore if it's random who wins, is it a good sport? It's a bit of a philosophical argument.
Ooh, well, So when I was telling people about this podcast, spreading the word and saying it was called The Corridor of Uncertainty, and some people said to me, fans of sport, uncertainty. I think, and I was exactly the same when I started reading some of these, maths in sport kind of books. It had never really occurred to me that it was random. Like you said, I was like, no, Leeds United are the best team in the world. Or not, and they play the game and the right person wins, and that there's no randomness. And we've talked about this in a previous episode about how, Liverpool, Steven Gerrard slips.
Yeah.
The football hits a beach ball that a fan's thrown on. Actually, that's quite clear that there's a level of uncertainty in sport.
Yeah.
And, I'm going off on a tangent now, but one of my friends who's really member of Mensa, really into board gaming, that sort of thing, was saying about chess is a game where there is no randomness, it's complete skill. So that if you play that with her 7-year-old nephew, she's always going to win.
Yeah.
Whereas you can play other board games where there is some randomness. So even her playing at the best of her ability, the 7-year-old's got a chance.
Yeah.
And I think that's sport, isn't it? That's why they say you play it on the grass, you don't play it on the spreadsheet. And so that's what we love about the Premier League and all these things that anyone can win on the day. So when we were talking about this with people about the podcast, so there is some uncertainty. And then they were saying which sports have got the most uncertainty in them. And is that good? Is that bad? So you're making an interesting point. I think that there is an optimal level, my friend with the board game, you want to have some level of uncertainty because if the best team just wins all the time, then what's the point?
Isn't that a good contest of talent in the event? So this is, as I said, this is not a great argument why basketball is a terrible sport, but it suggests that there is an element of randomness in there that then, if this is not what sports teams, coaches, anybody wants is to have this amount of randomness. Obviously, so the thing I'm kind of neglecting from my criticism of basketball is the time when people score is not random.
No.
You know, good teams control the last 30 seconds in order to be able to ensure that they can score.
Yeah, so this is what I was going to say to you, that actually it's not what it sounds like, because the clock is stopping. Like you say, that this is the reason you can have a buzzer beater in this sport is because the clock is stopping every time the ball's out of play or someone's taking a free throw and all these sorts of things. But as you're getting into those last seconds, the good teams are doing that, right? They are taking up, they're in the lead, so they're taking their full 24 seconds, and if you're behind, you're trying to get a quick basket to try and get it back to you. So it's not like they're just darts where they're just taking it in turns to do something and then it's, do you get it in at the end? It is, they have controlled that very cleverly, and they are doing things like, okay, we're behind, we need to foul you because it's less than 24 seconds, you're just going to hold the ball for 24
so you're kind of leading into what I was then following up with, which is, if this is a indicator of good teams being able to do this turnaround, or do good teams manage to maintain the lead, that sort of thing. The question is kind of, were the Indiana Pacers last year good by winning these sort of games, or were they bad? Is this something we can actually spot in the trends of the data across these seasons?
I think this is really interesting because in a way you could be saying it's a bit like playing for penalties, right? In the FA Cup or something, you recognise you're the weaker team and think we just need to stay in this and get it to penalties, because penalties is more like a coin toss at the end.
Yes.
So you're right. Maybe the Indiana Pacers could think, let's just hang in there, and then we've got a better chance.
Well, so Eastern Conference semi-finals last year against the Cleveland Cavaliers. This was a notable game. Yeah. So they were trailing from midway in the first quarter, the end of the first quarter. So you can see on screen, I put up the score chart. This is just the score differential across the game. You can see Pacers led for a very small amount of the first quarter, less than half. After that, Cavaliers were in lead the majority of the game. And, if we're talking about running out the clock or playing for penalties, obviously the Pacers only started trying in the fourth quarter.
That clearly wasn't the tactic
so were the Cavaliers, trying to hold on? Yeah, it gets a bit complicated.
I love it. You see, when you look at this really reminds me of, again, this is a tangent, but it's a mathematical, not phenomenon, but thing that, when you get humans involved in randomness. So like if you say to somebody, generate some random numbers, we don't do it truly randomly because randomness is more bunched. And things like test scores, or, if you actually looked at data, because of players or whatever, they're not random. Like you would expect to see a uniform distribution across all the numbers, but because people go for like, I want to get 90%, there's more bunching around those. And you absolutely see that in this plot, that you can see where the quarters are, and that's a coaching thing. It's like, right, you could imagine the Cavs are leading by like 20 points after the first quarter. So it's like, right, as let's chip that, let's try and get that to single digits.
We can kind of see at the end of the first quarter, the Cavs were really like, let's pump this advantage while we've got it. Let's really make sure we're doing well. And then it's like the Pacers try a little bit, but then again after halftime, it's again sort of a bit more mixed. But so
anyway, right. So this wasn't the tactic.
Yeah. So what I did is, looking at this game in particular, is to work out how long the Cavaliers were in front. The deciding part is the 3 seconds to go. Halliburton for the Pacers. Had a 3-point shot, turning 117 to 119 into 120 to 119. So that's the point that kind of what we started with, was the only bit that actually mattered was that 3 seconds, because that's the end point of the game. That matters who's in front. So despite leading as it turns out, 88% of the game, the Cavaliers didn't win. So this is a bit like those probability of win charts that the Cavaliers were winning for 88% of the game. Pacers were leading for 7% of the game, but they managed to win because they were winning for the most important part, which is the very last second when the whistle goes. So what I took from that data across the years was to look how bad that Cleveland performance was.
Right, okay.
So how often do teams dominate that much and then not win?
Yeah.
So comparing it to that 10,000 740 league games. So not postseason, just regular season games. There were only 79 games across that 10,000 where the team that was that lost the game was in front for a longer period of time. So a longer amount of time.
Over 50.
Overnight. So only in 79 games was there teams with who were leading for more than 88% of the time.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
Were in front.
Right. Okay.
So the team that lost were in front for more than 88% of the game in 79 games. Mm-hmm. So that's 0.74%. So that Cavaliers performance is in the top 1% of what I've called dominant losses. So this is where it's a number that I've come up with called the losing time in front. So when you lose, how much time did you spend in front? Mm-hmm. And we'll come to a definition I made up in a moment.
Excellent. Yes.
Then there's also the winning time in front. Yeah. So that will be in the Pacers version, 7%. Yeah. That's the amount of time they were in front of that game that they won.
So this is actually, again, just to reference the previous episode, when I didn't, in the interest of time, I didn't talk about this, but when I was thinking about the sports statistic of the year, I considered doing it as a percentage rather than the 4 minutes and however many seconds. I thought about, should I say this percentage of the time in the knockouts they were ahead? Yeah. But I decided against it because I thought that the story of it, that having the units as minutes, was more really getting to what that felt like.
Well, that's what exactly. So you would say the 3 seconds rather than the in the basketball, the 3 seconds that's important when the Halliburton made that shot for the Pacers rather than the rest of the game.
Yeah, so I think, but in your case, it's better to have it as a percentage of the time in the game that you were ahead.
I mean, so one of the reasons I used the percentage is because I just included games with overtime in the rest of them. So it's like fudge, but it's still about percentage.
No, that's the right thing to do. And like I say, in a sense, that's why I thought about using a percentage, because I had to say in the episode, and they went to penalties, and that was in extra time, and so actually it's more than 3 times 90. So yes, I agree. Percentages. As I say, I probably should have done that as a percentage, but I just felt like the minutes and the seconds was the funner story. Go on then, right?
Yeah. So the chart on screen here is the distribution of that losing time in front statistic. So that's the percentage of the game for which the team that lost were in front in the scoring.
The team that lost were in front. Yeah. So you would expect this to be.
So there's a big bar at the 0 time because that's the team that lost were never in front.
In front. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the team. So those are the games you kind of expect to have where teams that are rubbish, losing the game all the way through, sort of thing. Or were winning for only a very, very small amount of time. So I took, though, the right-hand side of this, the top 10% of this, as the dominant defeats. So that's where the team dominates for at least 61%. So the top 10 percentile. Yeah. The losing team were in front for at least 61.5% of the game. So the majority of the game.
So over half of the game, yeah.
Over half the game, they were in front, but then they lost. Mm-hmm. Then I also...
Right, okay, so I just said the team that lost, you would expect that they weren't ahead. But actually, I'm just trying to now think what it would look like if you're correct. Actually, you would expect to see it bunched around 50. That actually,
so it's completely random. Yeah, it wouldn't be. But it's definitely...
So more mass being towards the left of 50% shows that teams that are dominating win. Yeah. Okay. And the things towards the right are the shocks, where it went. It's a shocking result.
And then I also took the flip side of this statistic, which is the winning time in front. So the team that are winning the game, how long they spent in front, but took the bottom 10% of that. Mm-hmm. So the teams that weren't winning much of that game, that they were in front for. So
will we be picking up the same matches in both, but just the opposition and the...
So we're taking the winner and the loser. Yeah. So putting those together, this is a way of like categorizing games into these things.
Yeah.
This is then to look at those across the season. This is the data for it. And you can see...
I was about to say, where are the teams? Right,
yeah, so the teams are there. I didn't want
to say it in case you hadn't produced the chart, but excellent.
Colours are all correct for the teams. It's just a lot of them play in the same colours, to be honest.
Yeah, like if they've got some
the primary colours.
City edition uniforms that you could have probably gone to those palettes. But anyway, as long as the Celtics are in green.
This is the Wikipedia colours, basically.
Yeah.
So the Celtics are in green. You can see 2024, Celtics had a very high win percentage and were top there. So filled circles is the number of unlikely wins. Open circles is the number of dominant defeats.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of see, if you look at the chart very closely, there isn't really a trend.
Yeah.
So there isn't a strong trend of, in 2024, for example, the Boston Celtics, highest win percentage, had more dominant defeats than unlikely wins. 2022, I couldn't tell you the colour of that which team that is, but the team with the highest win percentage, very high win percentage, near 80%, had many more unlikely wins than dominant defeats. So there's a general trend of more filled circles towards the top right, more open circles towards the bottom left.
Yeah.
Which is that sort of correlation you would expect.
Yeah.
Teams with lower win percentage are more likely to be having dominant defeats or more. Yeah. So there's a sort of trend, but there isn't a really clear trend. So you can try and examine this chart closely, hopefully through the QSA website as well.
Yeah.
That you can see the details of it, that there isn't actually a clear trend. Yeah, so that's the season records where you're counting the non-dominant defeats. What we want to look at is maybe if these values, this winning time in front and the losing time in front, so that's how much the winning time in front is the dominant, is the unlikely wins, how much these individual values across the average of a season, how much those play into the winning percentage.
Yep.
And that's what we see here, is the correlations of these. So as you would expect, the winning percentage and the average winning time in front is positively correlated. Good teams spend more time in front, basically. As you would expect, there's a pretty decent correlation with it. There's a bit of spread, a little bit of heteroscedasticity.
Nice.
But as you would expect. And then the standard deviation of that, it goes down because the teams with spending more time in front tend to be more dominant. And as you would expect, it's kind of, that if you spend more time in front, you're going to have a smaller variation in how long you spend in front winning.
Yeah.
So the average losing time in front, same thing. That this is that a good team with a high win percentage will have a higher average losing time in front because they dominate games.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that they win those games, but they dominate the games. So that, so we can see, and then the standard deviation of that is the opposite, because this is then that when you're losing those games, it'll be a larger variation. Sometimes you lose more. So it's not necessarily unexpected that standard deviation is positive for that one.
Yeah.
Right. So these numbers, this winning time in front, losing time in front.
I mean, what would you think that would look like if you did it for football?
Yeah, comes to something I wanted to look at in the future. Is actually is to see football.
Because that's, if you're saying, like we said at the start, if you're saying that this is a bad indicator of a sport, then you want to see what other sports would look like.
So there's a couple of
the difficulty with American sport. The difficulty with football is that you can draw.
Yeah.
That's what makes life easier in America, as my friend, American friend says. You keep playing until someone wins or it rains.
So I'd like to extend this actually to college basketball, because the NBA is a closed system. It's a tight. You'd expect it to be even.
Yeah.
So in some ways, you expect this idea of competitive balance, that the league is quite balanced between the different teams. There are systems, the draft system, and things like this, to try to ensure that the league is somewhat balanced.
Yep.
So in a system where it's not so open, where a great team can play a really bad team more often, would you see this actual correlation be higher because the dominant teams will dominate even more? And is that then a better sport because you have that average winning time in front is, if that's higher, the good team is dominating more. So is that a better sport? Because as a test of the ability of basketball, a good team should dominate longer in the score lines. So in terms of football, soccer, I think it would be difficult because of the rarity of scoring goals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in conclusion, it's not that basketball isn't a good sport. It's that perhaps it's a very balanced sport. And I would say, as in that any team can win on any given day almost. And maybe that a good sport at the end of the day when a team, when the best team losing to the worst team is actually something we like in sport. That's the drama. But is that actually an inefficient contest of ability then? If the worst team can beat the best team on any given Sunday, I know it doesn't work for basketball, but as they say, on any given Sunday, or that can that result happen? That makes it a very balanced sport, and there's arguments about competitive balance, about what sort of sports are balanced. But is there? Could you say that it's an inefficient sport because it's not filtering out the best team at winning basketball games from other teams? So do you agree that I've managed to not statistically prove that basketball is a bad sport?
Oh, definitely, I agree that. But you've given me a lot to think about. And actually, I love basketball. I absolutely love basketball. So when you started with it, it rocked my world. It was like you were telling me that ice cream's awful or something like that I just couldn't believe someone was telling me this. But you have opened my eyes to, taking the scales from my eyes, let's say, or the rose-tinted glasses off. Because again, I'm referring back, you're starting to see all the biases come out now, but darts, right? I've always felt that is not one of my favourite sports, let's put it like that.
I concur.
And in a way, you've made me see that basketball's a lot like darts. It's taking it in turns.
Yep.
To have a percentage at getting it in the zone you want to get it in. And then that's never been made more clear to me than watching 3-on-3 basketball in the Olympic Games, where it's actually like more obviously, let's take turns. You can play it on half a court and just take turns on this, having a go at shooting. And so I think when you start to view it more like darts, right, then it's just, but what you're saying is it's like if you had speed darts where there was a timer on and actually it was just like holding it.
Yeah.
Imagine speed darts.
I think
right?
maybe you've highlighted a couple of interesting extensions for this that I think maybe like looking at failed possessions in basketball. So is that actually the biggest determinant? I would imagine some analysis has already been done on this in terms of teams that, managing to turn over possession without a score. How many times you do that in a game? How well does that correlate with victory? Because that's, turn-based is only going to matter in case of 2s versus 3s, isn't it? Or even 4s in there.
But I think it's, the more you've made me think about it, clearly, the more I think that basketball is a turn-based game in disguise. Less obvious turn-based game than others. But because it's a bit in disguise, like you say, where you win is that turnovers, is that forcing turnovers, is making sure. So, and then again, lots of good things you could do. The final thing I was going to say, what I thought you were going to do with this when you were trying to convince me that basketball's a bad game was a bad sport or not interesting. When you're watching football and they say, it's like a basketball game, right? I always think that's a strange comment to make, as if they're saying it like it's good. Yeah. It's good that it's end to end, right? Yeah. And so that was what I was going to come back to you with.
Right.
Which was like, when you're watching football and they're using the sentence, it's great, it's like a basketball game, how can you tell me that that's not a good sport? Yeah,
that's an excellent point. Yeah, there's a lot more I need to do in order to statistically prove that basketball is a bad sport. I'm not sure it's actually possible. It's quite popular, as I'd say, to bring it back to full circle perhaps, that the frequency and the excitement and the drama of a buzzer beater is probably unmatched in other sports. So, I think in that case, I probably have to give up my argument about basketball. So I will say that for today, I can't prove my point, but we'll hopefully see you later on the corridor of uncertainty.